Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. Well, this time we're going to take a little look at something you don't see very often. This is Justice Incorporated, featuring the Avenger, issue number 1 from DC Comics, 1975. There's a nice Joe Kubert cover. It kind of makes it look like it might be a war book, but it's not. See, for those who don't know, yeah, this issue was, I showed this briefly with some other comics a few weeks ago. This was written by Denny O'Neil, based on the novel by Kenneth Robeson, with art by Al McWilliams. Okay, and the Avenger is a fictional pulp magazine crime-fighting hero who first appeared in the Street and Smith publications from 1939 to 1942, totaling 24 issues. He was created by Paul Ernst under the name of Kenneth Robeson, and that's the name they used for the creator of Doc Savage as well, even though this was not... Doc Savage was actually created by Lester Dent, using that name. Although he did have some input into the Avenger, as well as Walter Gibson of The Shadow. It combined wanting a new hero and combined a bunch of different elements and consulted with some of the other writers. And oh well. Years later, in the early 70s, the stories were reprinted as a series of novels, just like Doc Savage. And he combined elements of both Doc Savage and The Shadow, and sometimes called the last of the great pulp heroes. Okay, in the DC Comics, they started this in 1975, produced Justice Incorporated, which was the title of the first novel. And but unfortunately, this title only lasted 4 issues. There was a short-lived Avenger radio show in 1941 and 42. I don't think he's ever made it to movies or TV. But some interesting stuff. One of the biggest problems I've read a few of the books, both Doc Savage and the Avengers, and one of the biggest problems I've had in it is that like Doc Savage, he has a group of assistants or agents, kind of like the Shadow had in the books, anyway, agents, and most of the story involves them. And then he comes in at the very end, which I don't like. But anyway, and as I said, this was drawn by Al McWilliams. This is the only thing I have ever seen, to my knowledge, that I've ever seen him do for DC Comics. It's mostly most of the stuff that I've seen him do is for Gold Key or other things from the parent company. He did Star Trek at Gold Key for the last 2 or 3 years before they lost that license, and did some Flash Gordon and Masters of the Universe books for what do you call it? For Western Publishing. Okay, so let's take a little look here. That's it. As I said, they had 4 issues. Issues 2 through 4 were drawn by Jack Kirby. but they were written by Denny O'Neil, who's of course most closely associated with Batman stuff. But so let's go. Here we go. Justice Incorporated. It's very fine draftsmanship and good visual storytelling, but for this kind of character, it's not quite as pleasing as his style would have. What I'm trying to say is his style is not quite as pleasing for this kind of material. He's a very fine draftsman. I really like his work, and is good at the storytelling, but might have been better. Okay, it doesn't specify the time period, but you can tell by the aircraft. It's would have been what, 39. And I'm not sure if they would have had because they're showing here this plane is a DC-3. I'm not sure if it would have been being used as an airliner yet or not. But DC-3 is a beautiful aircraft. It got a lot of use in World War II. The Brits had their version, which they called the Dakota. Okay, and here it is at an airfield just outside New York City, and people are getting on board this plane. There's and quickly this fellow who we know now is Richard Benson, or Dick Benson, and his family, his wife and his little daughter. They're hustling and get aboard. Then we see the guys talking for them because they were last minute passengers on this plane. There were too many witnesses. Should I? Too many witnesses. We'll handle this in the air. The plane takes off. And they're getting comfy. I have one of the seat mates. His name introduces himself as Arthur Hickok. Introduces to Dick Benson. Go, the explorer and adventurer. I'm honored to be in your company, sir. So we know how Dick Benson is relatively well known. He goes to they're in flight. He goes to the head in the airplane, washes his hands, washes his face, whatever. Comes back and sees that Hickok's seat is empty. And then he notices that his wife and his daughter are missing too. He kind of goes crazy because this plane, there's not a lot of places to hide on one of these aircraft. Where are they? What happened? And the other guys on the plane, they all kind of bunch up on him. Yeah, this will be better, easier. I forgot to lay the book down, and he lays into him. Finally, someone gets from behind with a fire extinguisher, lays him low. Then we see him coming around. This is 3 weeks? 3 weeks later, he's in the hospital, and he's getting the word, that he's been injured and stuff, but he sees he has been severe affected by these events. His eyes, skin, and hair have gone ghostly white with the shock because he realizes something has happened to his family. Let's see. And he said it may revert to normal. Said never. And his face is somewhat paralyzed too. This kind of makes him kind of a little bit right there with the Joker in a way. Doctor, I'm grateful to you, but if you value your life, stay out of my way. And he takes off, leaves the hospital. He goes and he gets his stuff because he's a wealthy fellow. He's had a career in doing all kinds of adventures, unspecified adventuring, but he's got a special gun, which is a 22 caliber, very small, 22 caliber, 4-shot revolver, and perfectly balanced throwing knife. And they're named Mike and Ike. He puts his gear on, and I guess this is his adventuring gear. And this is the way he dressed in this gray suit. Is always see him in the covers of the books. And he goes to the airport where he first left, and finds that aircraft, notices something's not right. It looks like a new coat of paint, other stuff. Someone sneaks up behind him, grabs him, boom, and it's a big fella, but he kind of lays him low himself, tossing him, and they go to slug and fight. But then now they discover, oh, it's something different. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a cop. We don't get into the details, but for some reason Smitty, this is the guy. He's known as Smitty. His name is Algernon Heathcote Smith, known as Smitty. And he is a PhD doctorate in physics. So he's a smart man. He's a great, big, massive, extremely tall, massive, and extremely strong fellow. And he said he's like had been framed for some relatively petty crime, and he thought this guy. But he heard about these events, and he was here to check it out himself. So they get on the plane. Then they discover there is a secret hatch in the bottom of that plane. That's when the bad guys get there. Some of the gangsters get there, and boy, they just clean house with those guys. Take them out. Uses his gun, and but he doesn't kill people. He shoots them just to graze their skull and knock them out. That would be a very close and difficult shot to do, but he does it. So now they take care of those goons, hide them away, and so he has Smitty run into town, get him some grease paint and stuff. He's got a plan. And then we see, and they find a map. And this is from New York. They were going to, it has the route that the plane had taken before, the same route. And he sees right about here, sees on the map where there's an X, is where my family disappeared. And it's going over, flying over one of the Great Lakes. Doesn't specify, I don't remember which one was right there. Anyway, and now this is where things come. Dick Benson, who takes the name of the Avenger, his face is more or less paralyzed, and his skin is the consistency of like putty. So he becomes a master of disguise, putting makeup on his face to color his face and hands, and then he manipulates his flesh so that he can change his features. And Harry looks like mussed up his hair, and now he looks like an old man. So then but he's got a plan. Later, while the passengers are again boarding that aircraft, there's this rich lady, and doesn't matter who she is, and they get on and, hey, how'd you get on board?
Never you mind, Sonny. I'm gonna ride this here aeroplane.
And it says, what'll we do with the hunchback? And they call him a hunchback because you can't really see it here because he's a hunchback. Now, for those who may not know, at one time, hunchback people were relatively common for various accidents and or illnesses involving the spinal cord. But with modern medicine, you don't see it nearly as much. In fact, I had a school teacher, a lady who was a hunchback, and he overhears them talking, and says, what'll we do with the hunchback geezer?
Don't sweat it. We'll dump him same as we did to the dame and the brat.
So then he knows what happened to his family. Then they're when they get at just the right time, all the other passengers are in on this deal, and as well as the pilots, of course, have grabbed the lady, hold the Avenger at gunpoint, put a parachute on her, open that secret hatch, and toss her through with the parachute. But then they toss the old geezer out too. But while he's falling, he catches onto he removes his outer coat, shows that he was planning ahead. He has a parachute on, which is why he was a hunchback. The lady has parachuted down and it has been recovered. She was kidnapped. They're at gunpoint, and they didn't notice the Avenger because they thought he was just going to fall to his death. And she goes, says, the deal is, you four, this is some other people who had also gone missing,
You four control the Acme Motor Company, and you're going to sign papers giving it to us."
"We will not. The idea is outrageous, simply outrageous."
So that's was the whole plan. Then the Avenger shows up, and they take pot shots at him, miss, and he dives for cover and gets all of them, grazing their skulls, knocking them out. But he's only got 4 shots. He took care of them. Well, still back in the woods, there was the big boss and 2 more goons. And they get the drop on him. Well, he quickly pulls out his throwing knife and takes out one of the other goons with the throwing knife, which leaves one left. But then suddenly, wham! There's Smitty. Because he had gone to get the authorities and stuff. And there's Smitty, right just in time to take out that last guy. And now there's just the big boss. And who is it? It turns out to be Arthur. There it is. Arthur Hickok, the guy who was on the plane with him. He had set the whole thing up to make it look like he had been kidnapped somehow, as well as these other people, so they could sign this company over to him. Well, this is now his anger gets the better of him. He grabs the man, starts to throttle him. I'll kill you, but Smitty pulls him away. "No, you're no murderer. The police and the courts will settle with him." Okay, Smitty. Look how big Smitty is compared to the Avenger. So that's it. Now he dedicates his life to him, and he and Smitty, and later a bunch of others, to fighting crime and despicable criminals like these fellows. And that is the beginning of the Avenger and of Justice Incorporated. And then there's a text page talking about the Avenger and some of his characters, other side characters. So that is all I had to share with you this time with Justice Incorporated. A fine book, even though it's one that you don't see, and it was a pretty decent adaptation. I don't remember if I read that one or not, but I think I did. I can't remember. It would have been a long time ago, but it's a good book. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Tell me what you think of Justice Incorporated and or The Avenger. All that jazz. And remember, comics are art.